Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you all have had a great day. I know that I took a melatonin last night around 3 a.m. and it knocked me out for half the day. I was trying to get work done and then I still couldn't get to sleep when I was ready. So I thought that a melatonin would help, but that knocked me out for a whole day almost. So I'm well rested today. So hopefully you all are as well. Let's see if we can get AJ on and then get started. Hello, everyone. I see Michael is on. I saw Eric pop up. Hello.
I'm extremely well rested as well.
Perfect. I saw that you got someone to take one of your shifts so you have a long break.
Oh my god, I cried like tears of happiness.
So, you're a flight attendant, correct?
Yes, I am.
I feel like that on I've been having so many lives with people who their lives were drastically changed because of the pandemic, and I feel like that line of work was also hit pretty hard.
Oh, yeah, I took almost a year off of work because of that.
Was that
Voluntarily, thank God. It wasn't a furlough, but still, I was out of work for like a year. But I was collecting stimulus unemployment, so it wasn't really that bad, but yeah.
yeah, that's crazy. And I know that you've also got your own kind of cooking series that you do as well. Did that kind of free up some time for you to dive into that full time?
Oh, that's literally how it got off the ground. Like the time
That's
that I
awesome.
was able to invest in it, I didn't have while I was flying. So yeah, taking that year off is pretty much what got me off the ground.
That's awesome. Well, I will let you introduce yourself so people know who you are, and then we can dive into a discussion around that.
Well, I'm AJ. If you check out my page here, you see that I am a baker, so I love all things dessert and kitchen related. And I do fly. I'm a flight attendant as well, so I'm like the busiest person you'll ever meet in your life, and that's pretty much my story.
Yeah, I've got lots of friends that fly with different companies, and I feel like everyone's story is very different with how the airlines have handled the pandemic, as well as how your shifts and hours work. Like I've had some friends tell me that they can just choose where they fly, and then others they're like, I have no control over that whatsoever.
Yeah. Luckily, with ours, they kind of give us a schedule. So I think we have the most flexible scheduling system out of all the airlines. So I completely understand what they're going through, but I most of the time don't have to go through the same thing
Yeah.
because I can kind of manipulate my schedule a little bit more.
Make it work for you. So
If I
with
didn't have that power, I don't know if I would still have this job, to be
yeah,
honest.
I could imagine. I know that when I switched to a job where my schedule was a little bit more I could probably plan 6 months in advance what I wanted to do because I knew my schedule that far in advance for myself, just because I knew I didn't work certain days, and that was extremely helpful for sure.
It was, yeah.
So when it comes to being a flight attendant, I know that you get to travel around a lot of places. Are there places that you still want to go?
Oh, yeah. I mean, every country on the planet, pretty much. I want to see everything. So I've been able to fly internationally, but they don't give those to me because I haven't been there a million years. So
Yeah.
if people try and get rid of them, I pick them up. And I'm actually trying to pick one up for next month. So hopefully I'll go somewhere. We'll see.
That's awesome. I know that with the variant that is going around now, a lot of places are starting to say that we might be looking at another shutdown. Has the airlines been talking about that?
Um, Honestly, not to my knowledge. And if
That's
they were, I probably wouldn't be allowed to talk about it.
yeah. I know that when it
Honestly,
comes
no,
to
I don't know.
yeah, I think that because where I live, I am in contact with a lot of people that work in the hospitals, and they've been saying the numbers are starting to rise a little bit more here in Richmond, Virginia. I've actually had a couple friends that went out to the same places that I went out to a couple weeks ago, and they are now sick, and they have been tested positive for the next variant. So I'm not loving the sound of that. I'm really hoping that we kind of like have learned from the first round and we can get the second round done a lot
Oh,
faster so it doesn't
no, that's
impact
not
us at all.
true. Come on. You see how we are. You know that's not true. We don't learn from shit, okay?
Hey, I've seen more masks being worn again here, so I've got hope for the people around me. I'm not sure about other parts of the country, but at least
Oh,
here in the more liberal city, there's some masks being worn.
it'd be nice if everyone did that, but yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes to like your social media platform and kind of building your following, like how did you kind of start it? Did you go into this with the intentions of having a platform to do your own show on, or is that something that kind of developed as you started to grow?
Ugh. No, I mean, I never even joined Instagram with the intention. I didn't even know having a lot of followers was a thing when I joined Instagram. I had no idea about it. Granted, I joined like probably 10 years ago when it was brand new. Um, but it was more so when I started feeling more. I don't know how I'm going to sugarcoat being a thirst trap, but you just. When I started feeling more body confident because I was working out a lot more, I posted a lot more revealing stuff. And this was several years ago as well, and I've deleted every photo since. But I mean, I posted a lot of very revealing stuff, and I gained followers pretty quickly because I guess people like looking at that. Um, Shocker, right? I mean, gays
What?
love
That's
looking at that.
yeah.
But yeah, that's how I initially started gaining, and then weirdly enough, last year when I started my period of not working, um, I just started gaining like crazy because I posted one picture in my kitchen that blew up. And then ever since then, it was like it would go in spurts, but it's been a continuous incline ever since. So that is very nice because it is definitely more people to like show my baking and stuff too. Not that my main following cares too much about that, but you know, it's still a platform.
Yeah. So when it comes to your passion for baking, where did that kind of come from?
I've always had it. My mom is a professional. She owns a bakery. I've gone and helped a couple times recently, but I grew up with it. So it was always something I liked. And then when I was in college and realizing I hated my degree and wasn't going to try and find work in it, I kind of started the YouTube and picked up the baking again. And I mean, yeah, long story short, it's just my whole life. It's been what I love doing.
Yeah. I personally did not grow up with a mother that enjoyed baking or cooking. Like we were the family that normally things would end up very burnt, and we would just have to eat it. So like whenever I go out on dates and people go, "Oh, do you like cooking?" I'm like, I'm trying. Like last night, I did a live with my sister, and I was like, "This is perfect right before I do my live with AJ tomorrow," because I was like, "I suck at cooking, and I would love to show you all how bad I am." And I actually didn't do too bad. I didn't burn anything last night, so I'm proud of myself there. But I'm definitely in the process of learning. My last sister that I lived with, she did not enjoy cooking at all, so it was never fun for me. But now that I live with a sister who's willing to explore and really mess up our food and eat it anyway, we've been having a lot more fun trying new things.
Well, as long as you have open-minded people, it's a lot easier to cook for them because then maybe they don't even know you messed up if you don't tell them.
Yeah. I did this one thing where like it was supposed to be kind of like a casserole type thing, like very solid. And when I pulled it out, it was very much a soup. And I didn't tell anyone what I was making that day. So like when I served it, I was like, yeah, it's soup. Because I had no clue what I
Soup in a
did wrong.
casserole dish.
yeah, it's the only dish we had, right? So that's the one thing I keep running into when friends come over to cook. They're like, "Hand me this," and I'm like, we don't have that." I always tell people when they come cook at my house, I was like, "Assume we have nothing, bring
Bring it.
everything."
And
It's
see,
a
my
kitchen
kitchen's
with
the polar
nothing.
opposite of that.
See, yours is perfect for a cooking
I'm
show.
like, you don't need to bring a single thing. I've got everything you could possibly imagine and probably a little bit more. And double that. Like I have multiples of everything. It just accumulated over time.
Yeah, that's what I learned about like your spices and stuff. Uh, you kind of like as you add more recipes, your spice cabinet starts to just kind of grow on its own. And now I've got a lot of things in there that maybe will only be used that one time, but I someone told me about an app that you can download and put everything that you have in your kitchen into the app and it will tell you the recipes you can make with the existing food. And I thought that that was actually a pretty cool
That
idea.
is cool. I'd
I'll have
even
to
like that.
I'll have to send that to you because like my sister and I were like, okay, we're just missing one ingredient. And here, now that I live in a city, the grocery store is literally right across the road. So like if we don't have something, like I'm like, let's go grab it. Whereas like where I used to live, if we didn't have it, I'm like, that's an hour commute to the grocery store and an hour back. It's not worth it. We'll eat
Wow.
whatever it is without that ingredient.
Sounds dreadful.
So with your baking show, like you actually put out your own like ingredients and stuff for your own brand. How did that kind of come about?
Well, somebody asked a question about that too. So I saw mixes, dessert mixes, and that was honestly kind of just like an on a whim idea. I'd never really planned to do that. The only thing I had ever planned was to write a cookbook. Like
Yeah.
since I could remember, that's been my dream. So that was always the main thing. But then when I gained following and I learned about like monetizing your brand and all the business stuff that you never consider, I was like, well, damn, I need to like find streams of income so I can actually start doing stuff with my brand. And then it just kind of dawned on me. My easy brownie recipe was fairly popular last year. And when I looked at the recipe, I'm like, I could totally package this. And that's kind of how that started. I mean, I did the trial of it, I put it in the package, and then kind of just wrote some instructions, followed it, and on the first try, I was like, okay, I need to sell this. Like, I've been missing out on money. So I knew I didn't want to launch just one dessert. I was like, I want to have eventually a whole line. That became kind of a new dream. It's like, I want a whole line of mixes like Duncan Hines or Betty Crocker at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I just kind of thought of more desserts I could separate in that way to make them packageable. And I'm releasing two more, so I'll have five total, which I'm really happy about in less than a year. I'm doing a oatmeal raisin cookie mix and a just a buttermilk pancake mix.
That's
Because I'm like, if I can package it that easily, why would I not sell it? I mean, you
yeah.
have to think like a business person. I'm like, if I could make money doing this, why am I not already doing it? So yeah, it was a no-brainer very quickly. After that initial thought of the brownies, I was like, done. We're totally doing this.
Yeah. I see someone says Shark Tank.
I'm not the
I
first
think
person who's said that, but I don't know. That intimidates me.
I feel like with Shark Tank, it's all about the presentation. Like, if you can like craft a really great presentation and a story, like I feel like they eat it up on that show. Because like I've seen some amazing ideas presented very horribly, and it didn't really go anywhere. And then I've seen some really goofy things that I never would have thought they would have like bit, but they did this like hilarious skit for it and they're like, I want it. And I'm like, okay, so it's more about your presentation.
Um, I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted. My phone is like on this stand and it keeps like going farther and farther down. It's like,
You're perfectly fine.
how do I fix this right now? It's kind of terrible. I'm probably just gonna end up holding it. Whatever.
Uh, I love it. Yeah, I think that that's one thing that a lot of people don't realize when it comes to being an influencer and being successful to where you can turn that into a career is you do have to kind of at some point flip your mind to that business mindset of how do I turn these numbers into a following? It's you can work with other brands because when they see you have a large following, if your values align with the brand, that's very useful. Or you can create
Yeah,
your
I
own
mean
brand.
that's how sponsorships happen.
Yeah, because there's a huge market for people who can influence people to purchase certain things. And if you can find your own brand to sell your own products, like that's even better because I've met influencers with way less followers than I have that make way more than I do as an influencer
Yeah,
because
I'm like, what are the secrets? Tell me how.
that's the best part though, because I feel like it's
Clearly
so
missing
new.
something.
It's so new that like a lot like when I did my taxes and tried to help them understand that some of my income came from my social medias, like it was so hard for them to understand because it's a new thing. But I've found like other creators just asking like creators are usually like the most friendly people, and they're just so willing to help each other with information and willing to share. Like I worked with this one girl and I was like, you could literally have charged me like $1,000 for this information and you just handed it over for free.
Yep. And it's becoming that people are like charging for knowledge on that now.
Yeah. I mean, within your own like brand, I think that it's important for people to realize that we've all come to where we are today on different routes. So we can all like share our journeys of growth and how we've kind of done it. And a lot of times we don't even realize what we've done. We're like, all of a sudden I am now followed by 45,000 people. We don't know why. They just did. Uh, you can share that you like posted thirst trap pictures and people
Well,
followed, but like that, like people can follow and then unfollow just as quickly, but you've created a space where people have stayed. And I think that that's something worth like looking into as well.
yeah, and it's really easy to look past that a lot of the time, which sounds terrible, and I always appreciate it. I guess just when you never really expected it or even looked for it, it's hard to notice it that often. And like every time I hit a milestone, I'm like, wow, I hit 50,000. I guess that is kind of a lot. Um, I don't even know how to feel about it. I'm just like, I used to be the shyest person on the planet, and now like there is not a single filter in my mind or mouth. So
Yeah.
I always really appreciate it when, especially people send messages and stuff, and they're really, really nice. Just telling you all kinds of things you had no idea you had any effect on.
Yeah.
Just like, oh my God, that's a new feeling, and I'm not mad at it. I'm just like, that's a new feeling. It's good. It's just new.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, I just sent a message to my friend Michael who's watching that someone sent me saying like that something I created changed their perspective on life. And like, it's very interesting. I see Mark is also here,
Yes.
uh, letting us know
Yes.
that you have no filter. But I think it's very interesting because sometimes we're just doing what we would do naturally. We just put it online, and somehow that impacts other people's lives. And then I guess when you get to a certain following and you realize that you have that capability, it's like, okay, now what do I want to do with this power that I have? Because I think a lot of people can do a lot with it. Some do it a little bit more for self gain, others will do it to help
Oh,
people.
there's no shortage of that. There is plenty of that. I used to
Yeah.
be one.
I think that it's an interesting mind flop for me. Like I never thought anyone would really care what I had to say. I knew that there were a few people that I like really enjoyed helping, and I was like, you know what? Instead of having like 2 hour conversations with 10 different people, I'm just going to post a YouTube video so that I can send it to whoever has a question about this so that it's not draining to me. And then it kind of became like people were like, I want to hear something about this. I want to know your opinion on this. And I was like, whoa, that's a new newfound thing for me.
Yeah. I mean, I try to answer as many messages as I can, but then I realize I'm spending an hour looking at my screen, and that's an hour I don't have. So,
Yeah.
and
I
it's
think
very
that,
sweet. I always at least like try and see all of them, but I do make an effort to go and reply when I have time to. It's just time has become a blur for me. So I don't even know what time is anymore.
I always tell people, I'm like, you have to realize that if it's not their full-time job, if social media creating is not a full-time job for someone, like more than likely the hours that they spend answering messages, like that's out of the kindness of their heart. Because I mean, our days can be very busy. I was doing all of this as a side hustle type thing until I lost my job at the beginning of July. Now I've flipped it over to like my full-time income, and it's a very different feel. But I thought I would have more free time. Come to find out, it narrowed down
Yeah,
even more because
probably
there's
less.
so much projects on the back end that I have to work on to make the stuff presentable at the front end that people see on a daily basis.
Yeah, I tried to post something about that um, a few days ago when I saw this. I think actually Mark shared it on his story. No, it wasn't Mark. Excuse me. It was somebody else who's a creator, and he posted this picture of like a pyramid, and just the tiny bit was stuff you see, and then the rest of it was stuff it takes to post the content you see. Yeah.
How long does it usually take you to kind of get everything together to create one of your videos that you do?
Oh. Um, for a YouTube video, I probably spend on average like depending on what I'm making, obviously, but on camera time, like 1 to 2 hours that I spend several hours on editing down to a 5 minute episode. So I'm already at like 5 hours probably for just filming and editing. And then social media posting, photography. Oh, God, I've never even thought about this before. You're making me realize right now. I mean, yeah, probably like 8 hours on one 5 minute YouTube episode to put that in perspective. Um, and then with TikTok and Instagram and stuff, since those are 1 minute videos, I normally do them on my phone and I edit on my phone, so it's just like quick and easy. But even that still takes like an hour or two just for a 1 minute video. So when you try to put this out like on a daily basis, it is easily exhausting and overwhelming.
Yeah. I I
That's my
constantly tell people because
somebody
people reach out
like
to
what's
me.
moving behind me.
Your foot.
Like, why are you looking behind me?
My face is right here. But
Trying to make my face take up the whole screen.
yeah, I've had lots of people reach out to me and ask if I'd like to help them like start their YouTube platform or give them advice on how to build an Instagram following. And I'm like, well, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of like sweat and tears, it's a lot of you put so much work into one thing and then that's like your least popular video. You can put all your passion into something and the video where you take your shirt off very quickly is the one that gets all the views. And it's interesting because I've told people like everyone should use what they're given. Like if you're a beautiful person, you shouldn't be made to feel bad for being a beautiful person and using that to your advantage because rich people would use their money to get an upper hand. Smart people would use their brain to get the upper hand, and beautiful people shouldn't be discredited because people are a lot more than just beautiful. When it comes to building a following and content, there are thousands and thousands of beautiful people out there that never get big because they didn't put the time and the effort in the back that people don't see. And when content grows and becomes successful, I think that people can easily just say, oh, it's because he's beautiful. But at the end of the day, like the content that you're creating, it is hours and hours. And a lot of times in the beginning, that content, it doesn't pay at the beginning. Like you don't get
It
paid.
definitely doesn't.
It came out of passion.
Mm-hmm.
And when you carry that passion, like these positive talks, like I started last year just because I thought there needed to be more positivity. And then when Instagram offered to start paying for lives, I was like, wow, okay. I was doing it for free before, but I don't mind if you want to pay me for them.
Yeah, Instagram hasn't offered me that yet, so you're ahead of me in that.
You got to jump on those lives.
I need to do more lives. I never do them, and I've been meaning to, and then I'm like, crap, I don't have any more time to. So we're gonna figure that out.
Yeah, most definitely. I felt like everyone got those notifications and I didn't realize that they weren't, because even Mark, because he does his own lives, and I know that you had done one with Mark as well. But I just assumed that everyone got those messages because it popped up as like an exclamation point at the top of my page. And so like when I was talking to Mark and he was like, yeah, uh, I would love to find a way to make all this hard work more profitable. I was like, well, I made like $250 on the live I did with my sister where I shaved the back of her head. I was like, whoops, I didn't know that people weren't aware that they were kind of becoming a thing. I think it's them competing with TikTok because I know that TikTok pays their
Probably.
creators.
Oh yeah, they absolutely do.
It's
Crazy amounts too.
Yeah, and it's very interesting to kind of have like brands and stuff reaching out to you because when I first started doing that, I was taking a lot of free stuff because I was just like blown away that a brand actually wanted me to wear something of theirs
Mhm.
and post a picture in it. Like that was blowing my mind. But then when I was talking to some creators on Clubhouse, and they're like, "Yeah, I just did this like $14,000 brand deal with the North Face." I was like, "Excuse me, what? Like, how much did you make? You posted how many pictures in one reel?" Wow, I'm slacking here. So like I think it's important for there to be like conversations around the fact that influencers are becoming like the celebrities that have a very specific target audience that brands want to kind of tap into.
Mhm. That's what I'm discovering now.
I mean, I feel like the cooking area, like that's a huge area of like creators can jump into that. I know that there's YouTubers that are jumping into that. I know iJustine is someone that I followed. She dove into like the cooking side of things as well to kind of tap into that audience. But I think that there's definitely LGBT spaces, which I love. I think that
Mhm.
that's important to kind of throw our community into all of those spaces as well because I like when I don't have to translate straight talk into like LGBT talk. I would rather just watch someone LGBT that makes references that I can relate to because I think that that's actually good content that's relatable. And now it's becoming a lot more acceptable to have that content out there. So people are definitely looking for it.
Yeah, it's nice. Like I said, I really have no filter, and even when I'm filming stuff, I don't care. Like I'm just being myself, and if it offends you, then don't watch it. And that's always how my mind's worked. I'm like, if you don't like it, why are you here? Why? Your absence will not make me upset. Like, bye. Please leave.
Yeah, I think that that's definitely something you've got to tap into when you're a creator. Is like you have to not care. Like
You have to
I've
have a thick
posted,
skin, and you also just have to be really open minded.
yeah, I've posted things where like I lost tons of followers after I posted. Like last year with the Black Lives Matter, when I shared like my support and I lost lots of followers. I was just like, those just weren't people that were meant to hear my message. I wish they would have stuck around because those are probably the ones that need to hear it the most. But I was just like, I'm not going to stop posting what I believe in just because certain people don't like to see that.
And see, I believe in dessert, and everybody loves to see desserts. So,
That's 100% true.
so it's pretty easy for me. It's not controversial. It's not anything.
Yeah. So you said that your dream is to have a cookbook. Is that something that you're still working on and putting together?
Yeah, I'm on page 90.
Okay.
Um,
How many recipes do you want in there before you publish?
I actually got that together a couple days ago. There's There's like a kid screaming outside. Okay. Um, I think like 50, 55-ish are currently planned. Um, Half of them are exclusive to the book, so they're not online anywhere. They never will be. I knew that when I wanted to write a book, I wanted there to be a lot of stuff in there that, yes, kind of paved my way over time and is online, but I also wanted a lot that you couldn't find anywhere else that you can't just go look up for free, might I add. Um,
Yeah.
Business, you've got to create those incentives. There's like, when you see a book from someone you follow, um, and it says something like, blah 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 exclusive to the book, whatever, that to me makes it more attractive to buy.
Yeah.
Because while I do like supporting any small business or influencer who sells product, um, my mind is always like, well, is any of this free online before I go and spend money on it? And it's not a read, it's just like, should they have thought about this? Like, make something that isn't so easily accessible so people want to spend the money on it. Because I always try and think like a customer. I'm like, what would somebody actually want to buy? Which may sound like a good idea to me, maybe not to them. Like, I always try and create that connection so that I can kind of guarantee more successful product launches.
Yeah.
And see, this is all stuff I never even would have known to talk about, like, even a year ago.
Yeah, I think that that's something that you kind of have to switch to, that business mindset. And it sounds like you've switched over there in a pretty good way. But like that's something that I've thought about as well with like my coaching and like the seminars that I train is like, do I already have YouTube videos out that people can access all this for free? Or do I just do like a shallow dive for my YouTube videos and sell the seminar as like the in-depth portion of that type of thing? But it's very important to create that. And I saw someone ask when it comes to your exclusive recipes being shared online after your book is published. I think that that's just something that kind of happens. I know
You can't prevent that, and you can't trademark a recipe.
Yeah.
I've heard conversations about it from some pretty big people in the industry about like, how do you protect your creations and whatever you're doing? And you can't really. I mean, when it comes to other bloggers and like big people of influence who post recipes, if they have a recipe for the same thing, odds are it's going to be very different, because people in that area respect that, and nobody wants to look like a copycat either.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it'd be pretty easy to get called out for posting something and claiming it as your own, especially in food, because people notice that.
Yeah.
So, it would happen. People would post it. I just wouldn't care. I'd be like, it's still mine, and I know that. So, my integrity is not questioned here.
Yeah. And I think the sell of the cookbooks would still continue because you've got loyal supporting fans that want to buy that cookbook because they want to support you as someone that they follow.
That is really nice. Yes.
Dylan said, "What is ad lib?"
Just go with the flow.
Yeah, I don't
Unscripted.
script out my questions for lives. I just let the conversation go wherever it goes. I feel like that's more authentic and real because
We literally had no planning for this.
yeah,
Because this was going to be next Monday, and last night I'm like, hey, I could do it tomorrow instead. You're like, okay, cool, I'll throw a flyer together.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to doing these types of things, I like to show the just authentic realness of the people because
You can
a lot
always
of times,
tell when it's forced.
yeah, I feel like, and I've done some where people kind of prepared stuff beforehand, and it's like the question before never relates to the question after, and it didn't flow at all. And I was like, I never want to do that again. So
You can't
anytime
have
someone tries,
conversation if you're just going from like bullet point to bullet point.
yeah, it's unless it's like a seminar where I'm planning it and I have a specific goal, like I don't like to plan things. I like it to just flow. I think that that kind of shows authentic things about people that you don't get to see. Like I did one live where no one had ever heard this guy talk before. They'd only ever seen his pictures online.
And his voice
Like,
was completely different than what you would have thought.
I thought it was a very like natural sounding voice. Like I would definitely think of him like recording like an Audible book. I would listen to him read a book. It was definitely a nice voice. I told him, I was like, you need to do more lives. Like this is entertaining and you've got a voice for it.
Yeah, and I mean, you gotta hope they actually have a personality to show too.
Yeah.
Nobody wants a boring
Always come
live stream
across.
where you just like sit there straight faced and answer questions the whole time.
Yeah, Dylan's over in the UK, so he
Primary school, is that a thing in the UK?
what's elementary?
Premature school. I don't. Jesus, I'm tired.
Young people school where the youngins go. But yeah, I think that when it comes to, like I was saying in a lot of lives, your joy should come from the creation. So when your recipes are being created, your joy comes from the fact that you get to share that with the world. Once
Oh,
you share it, like
sure.
the world will do whatever they want with it. Like there might be some YouTubers that are like, "Hey, I got this awesome recipe from AJ's book. I'm going to show you guys how to make this." Therefore,
Oh,
that
yeah.
exclusive
What
recipe is no longer exclusive.
one of my favorite pages to follow on here is somebody who does just that. Every picture she takes, she says what recipe from what cookbook it is, because that's the whole point of her account, is she's baking through cookbooks, which I think is brilliant. And her photography is so beautifully on point that obviously it's Instagram, people see the picture, that's what they notice.
Yeah.
But if you take time to read the caption, you're like, this is exactly what book it came from. So she's basically crediting them.
Yeah.
And she's gained very quickly from it. So, yeah, I mean, if you remake something from my book, please say it came from my book. Go for it. Yeah, all the
Tag
share.
it. I just recently found out that like people, I assumed everyone knew how Instagram worked and how like tagging works, but that's something that a lot of people didn't realize because I sometimes stumble upon my content on other people's pages just because I was going through something else. And I tried to get people to realize that if you use the @ symbol, uh, that notifies us that you've shared something of ours. Like if you just share it on your story, no one gets notified about that. If you want a creator to know that you're sharing their content, you either use that little mention box that's like with the little drop down to add stickers and all that fun stuff, or type the @ symbol with Drummond Culture or AJ behind it, and that will kind of notify us that, hey, this person shared your stuff. Like I didn't realize like how many people didn't know that, and they're like, I posted this many things from this creator and they never respond. I'm like, that's because we don't get the notification.
Yeah, and even so, I have like a lot of those turned off, honestly, which maybe is not the best idea, but it got annoying to a point where I'm like, I don't even want to see this. I'll see it when I log on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've got my social medias. Like, if there's a red dot, I have to look at it.
I have like
turn
0
all mine
push
off.
notifications.
Yeah. I had to turn all those off because I will like drive myself crazy. Like, I'll be like, gotta check my email, and I'll see a red dot beside like Facebook. And instead of checking my email, I go through that whole scrolling through all the nonsense posts on Facebook and then never checked my email. So I had to turn them off.
Mm-hmm. And then
So,
you've been looking at your phone for 4 hours.
yep. That's the accident of it all, like right there. And I learned very quickly that when it comes to your activity on social media, that also affects the algorithms on your account. So you have to be careful, like how much time you spend on there, because you can offset your algorithms really quickly.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Not that I spend that much time on here. I don't know if that hurts or helps me, but
It can do one or the other for sure. So when it comes to like you said you've been cooking for a while. So what is like something that you've kind of created for yourself that you're like really proud of that's like not like anyone else's out there?
The alcoholic bundt cakes I do every month.
Okay.
Precisely. And that is the first thing that comes to mind because um, every single person I showed that to was like blown away by it. They've never heard of it. They didn't even know you could do that. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. I did that. And
So,
it started January of this year because I was kind of in a like writer's block form of recipe writing. And I'm like, I don't know what desserts to make. Or when you're constantly thinking about food, it's like when you have to keep putting out new things, it gets difficult
yeah.
because you obviously don't want to repeat, but you want to do something and you don't want to copy someone else maybe because they did this dessert you've never made. To me, I'm like, I don't want to make the same thing, so that doesn't help. Um, and I remembered when I went to a online conference for baking people last year, one of the guys leading it was like, if you ever find yourself in this period of where like you're not creative or inspired or whatever, um, think of something you really, really enjoy. Doesn't have to be a food, just anything you enjoy, and find a way to turn it into a dessert. And like that's one of the few things that stuck with me from that conference. Because I'm like, wow, that's actually really good advice.
So you took like your childhood with your mud cakes and your adult life with your alcohol, put them
Right,
together.
I getting into a dessert. Um, no, having a Cosmo because that's my favorite drink, and I was like, I could make a Cosmo cake, and I like wrote the idea. I'm like, how would I do that? And then I made it, and I had to make it 4 times before it was actually really good. But once I got that really good result, I'm like, wow, this is a game changer. So I started doing one every month, and I still do. Like I'm doing it throughout the end of the year, and every month they like those are the most popular videos. And again, anybody I show pictures to when I tell them what it is, they're like, "What?" Like, yeah, I do that, and only I do that. So I'm very proud of it.
Yeah. I love that advice because I feel like as creative people that put yourself online, you do feel like you constantly have to like put out new content. And I don't think people realize how draining it can be when you feel like you have to be creative and you're running low on creative ideas. Like I'm the type of person that I'm driving most of the time when a creative idea comes to my head. And I'm just like, Siri, add a note, remember this because I'll probably forget it tonight when I'm exhausted. And then like when I'm actually like, hey, I have to create something, like sometimes I'll look through my ideas and like my like energy isn't there for certain things. I'm like, I can't talk about this because like I'm in low energy mode right now. What can I do that doesn't require me to be bubbly and smiley all the time? And like it's creative block, and a lot of influencers end up hitting that after they've kind of hit so many videos on their content. And I mean, do you keep most of your stuff in the baking field, or do you ever like kind of go over into like drinks or other types of food?
Um, I'm definitely open to that. Um, because for a little while, when I was only doing a YouTube channel, I actually did expand into savory stuff too. But when it came to like wanting a brand and a target audience, I'm like, it's probably better if I narrow it down to like a baker because then people know what to expect when they go to my page.
Yeah.
And maybe like if they're thinking of something specific, they'll think of me because they know I do it. So I love cooking and I think I'm pretty decent at it. I like to cook for people. It's just something I don't really have time for, I guess. Because there's plenty of really successful food like creators who do both of them, and it's no really rhyme or reason to what they do when. I think the enjoyment for baking, maybe I love it a little bit more, so I want to stick solely to that.
Yeah, I think that that's an important thing. And anytime that I've worked with like a business coach with like my coaching, they always their first advice is narrow it down. narrow it down, niche it out. You have to be very, very specific. Like, you can't just be like an LGBT coach. You have to be something even more specific. So having
To Google to research how to become an influencer or whatever, that'd be one of the top 5 things on every single link. It'd be like target audience, niche, be specific about what you are.
yeah, I
That.
yeah, people like I've heard lots of people because I do the things like VidCon and stuff, and they're like, what if I'm like a video game person as well as like a beauty vlogger and I also love to travel? And they're like, don't put them all in the same spot because
What do
like,
you like, or what do you? I don't know.
it's like people who do beauty vlogs aren't going to want to see notifications about traveling if they're not a traveler. So you have to like niche it down and then find something that makes you unique and different than all the other people that are doing the same thing. So like if you're doing food, like why are you so different in this field than anything else? Like I was in a clubhouse room where we were talking to people and giving them advice about like how to make their like platforms more successful. And there was this older woman, and her whole channel looked like she was trying to mimic younger girls putting on their makeup. And I'm like, girl, you're an older woman. Like, you need to like really hone in on the fact that you know how to make yourself look beautiful despite your age, because that is what there are tons of people looking to do out there in the world. Like, what do you do when you've got crow's feet? Like, what do you do? Like, stop marketing to like 17-year-old girls. They don't want to see a 40-year-old woman putting on like 17-year-old girl makeup. It's not going to be selling. So you have to find your market and your niche. And sometimes it's not exactly where you want it to be. But once you fall into it, like you've got to like really put the effort into that part of your channel.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that's why creating becomes exhausting.
Yeah.
Of stuff, and then you're like, well, that's not really relevant to my page.
Yeah.
So maybe
That's when you just kind of share it with your friends. Like
yeah,
you can cook all your fun food with your friends that's not baking and just share it and have fun and then keep your baking to your platforms.
I mean, for me specifically, if it's food related, that's pretty much good enough for me. Because I do have my second Instagram that isn't this one, it's my baking one, and it's literally just my photography of my desserts. So that this one can kind of remain what it is, like a teeter between what I love and my life, because that's done pretty well for me so far, so why stop?
Yeah.
Uh, but that way the other one can kind of gain its own following of just that. That's my hope, at least. We'll see if that happens, but
Yeah, and like we said earlier, like sometimes something that we put some passion into might not be the more popular channel, but at least you've got like that avenue to where you can put it out there. And there are going to be people who enjoy it. There just might be more that enjoy the other content as well.
yeah.
So when it comes to your recipes, I know that we're getting close to the hour. I want to know of some of like your biggest like uh-oh moments of where you've tried to create something new and it just did not turn out the way that you had planned it. Have there
Um,
been any of those?
there definitely are, because there's plenty of times where you think you know the answer when you're writing the recipe for the first time, and then it's like, oh well, I guess I need to teach myself a little bit something about that. And actually, the Cosmo cake in January, like I said, I had to make it 4 times, so I didn't really know how to write a recipe like that, so I kind of just guessed. Um, and the first one I made, I'm like, it tasted like nothing. It tasted like just air. I'm like, what? Like, I thought this would be great. Like, wow, that's awful. So, yeah, I mean, that happens a lot where flavor wise, I'm like, I think this will be really good. And I taste it, I'm like, it's terrible. It's just really bad. So that's why we test. And every recipe I post, I have made definitely more than once because there's always a way to improve it.
Do you think that you've developed your like tasting palate more so than like the average person? Because I know some people I talk to, they're like, it's missing something. Whereas like I'm like, okay, it's not that bad. I'll eat it. But I would never consider myself a cook. Do you feel like since you kind of work and build your own recipes that you've kind of like matured your palate to kind of know what something might be missing?
I I want to say yes and no because everybody is just different in that sense. So I think it also comes down to like what you know about cooking. Maybe not even necessarily having tasted it before. Because I do find that people who enjoy cooking or like like to create stuff in the kitchen are the ones who notice if something's missing or like if this could be better or whatnot versus somebody who doesn't really cook at all and may not know that much about it might taste the same thing and be like, I think it's great. So kind of like you said, I mean, I think palates do mature, especially if you're used to trying more stuff.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it's more like, what do you know about cooking? Like, do you know this is missing something? Because if you don't know, are you really going to taste it? Or are you just going to be like, oh, this is great. I wouldn't do a thing.
Yeah. I agree. I worked at a restaurant for a little bit where it was a fine dining restaurant and they made us taste wines. And I was never a wine drinker. So, like, my palate was, I really couldn't taste a lot of differences in what I was drinking. And they gave us like a sheet of like words that we could use to describe the taste. And like, there was one that said cat pee. And I was just like, I was making jokes, and
Sorry,
I
what?
also didn't know that like you swish it around in your mouth and spit it out. So I was,
Oh, yeah, you don't drink it. They don't need you getting trashed.
yeah. So by the end of the tasting, I was well into that feeling, and everything started tasting like cat pee because I thought that was funny to say, and they didn't find it very humorous. So
Funny and
I,
gross.
yeah, it wasn't as fun as I thought it was going to be, and I've definitely matured since then because I dated someone who like we had wine with dinner every single night. So I started to realize
That
that
sounds
there are
fun.
different tastes, but it took someone kind of maturing me to that point, and I can definitely now say like when I pick up wine and taste it, I'm like, not a fan of this one.
Hmm.
So, last question before we go. Like, my friend and I are actually thinking about doing a YouTube video just to be fun, to kind of mimic the Nailed It show, just because I know that I suck at stuff. So, it'll be humorous to watch me try to make something look good. If you were invited onto that type of show, like, what type of hopes and dreams would you hope that you would get to create for a show like that?
Um, I've always wanted to be on a baking competition show. Nailed It would definitely not be my choice
Okay.
because it's for amateur people. Like that's what it is. They look for people who don't really know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Um, so if I were to just be on a baking competition in general, I want to win,
Yeah.
but that is like the ultimate exposure to everybody in the industry. So I just want to show that I absolutely love what I do and that I'm good at it. And if they pick both of those things up, then you've pretty much made it. So it's simple, but that's honestly it for me.
Do you know how to go about getting into those types of things? Is it like just auditions, like sending in videos and clips of stuff? Like I've never looked into it because I know I would be more on the amateur side of things.
It's absurdly competitive. So I've I've been invited to apply for a number of them by like Food Network, like casting directors have called me, which is a full circle moment. First off, you're like, wow, they called me. I didn't
Yeah.
even know this. Um, and then they're like, well, we want you on the show, but you still have to go through the application process. I'm like, well, you should have started with that. Uh, get my hopes up. So yeah, the initial application is like asking you all about the background of what you do, pictures of your stuff, videos and all this. And then if you make it to the next round, it's a Skype interview with a producer. And I've made it to that round a number of times, and they ask you pretty much everything under the sun, mostly to gauge your personality and your natural responses to stuff.
Yeah.
Not so much what you say, but how you say it and how you come across, how you look on camera. They put together these like short little videos that they send to the producer, and then that's when they pitch you as a potential contestant. And then you're like kind of thrown into this pool of other contestants with all their videos as well. And then you just wait to hear back. And if you don't hear back, there's your answer. If you do hear back in terms of food, they're like, okay, you've made it this far. We like you, but now we need you to make this for us and send us a picture of it. Or make a little video of you doing this and send it to us. And then that further gauges their interest. It's like the most exhausting, drawn-out process ever.
Yeah.
Like, okay, by the way, filming takes 3 weeks and it's next month. We need to guarantee you're free those 3 weeks. I'm like, oh, Jesus.
Good thing you work for one of those airlines that you can make your own schedule.
Weeks off, though, that's a different story.
I can imagine.
That's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah. I personally feel like a show like that would be very unnerving for me if I was like in a field that was trying to show off my expertise, because I would assume that those types of shows don't give the people on the show much of a, hey, here's what to expect. Here's the recipes we're going to have you all do. I feel like that would be very scary to be a professional in that field and be thrown into a position where they're like, okay, this week you're going to make this. What if it's something that you've never heard of before? Does that make you nervous?
That's where you're really judged on how professional you are. Is, can you just even attempt this? Doesn't even matter if it turns out exactly how it's supposed to. Like, if you make the effort and show that you have the nerve to try that, then I think that's just as admirable as somebody who's made it a million times that can whip it up in 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that you also said like the fact that when it comes to those types of shows, I don't think people realize how those shows are casted and how people are found, because even shows like The Voice and American Idol, YouTubers are like sought after. Like so many of my YouTuber friends that are singers, like they don't even go through the regular audition processes that you see filmed on TV. And also, I don't think people realize how many rounds you go through before you're even at that time where you're standing in front of the actual judges being like filmed for those types of things. Like there's so many steps and processes before you are even in that like last round to kind of get that option or opportunity to be on the show.
Well, I mean, when you want good quality content, you got to pick the best people for it. So it's going to be a process.
Yep. And I think that it's also important that you mentioned like they're looking for personality and like your ability to answer things like just off the wall, because at the end of the day, they've got millions of submissions of people that bake. So at that point, you do have to figure out why you're unique and really go with it. Because at that point, you're no longer competing for like baking at that. You're competing with personalities to see if yours is going to be the winning personality.
I've had no fears in that department, but in terms of what I know versus other bakers, that does intimidate me. I'm like, wow, this person is like really freaking good. So gotta be better.
Awesome. Well, I see that we hit the hour, so I just wanted to say thank you for jumping on this live and doing it with me. I definitely look forward to seeing what type of content and stuff you put out. Definitely let me know when the cookbook comes out and when the different recipes and stuff come out, because I would love to help you promote that for sure.
Well, thanks. That would be incredible. And thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Yeah, no problem. I will let you go so you can have a good rest of your night. I know that you've got some days to relax, so have fun with it.
Thank God.
Awesome. Well, have a good night.
You too. Talk to you later.
Bye.